Thanks, Wade. I will do that. Let me first start, though, with a couple of extra thank yous. First starting with Melinda and Jessica from Circle. For any of you who are familiar with the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, they know how to put on an event. So between the resource fair, last minute switch on lunch for 500 people, reception afterwards, mini film festival, 11 tours tomorrow. This is a huge undertaking, so I can't thank the Circle team enough. Also the folks from the Idea Cooperative who built our website, built a lot of the materials and communications. They've been terrific. Angie from Sierra Nevada Conservancy, our chief sponsor, to help pull all this together. And then finally, Kristen Merrill from CAL FIRE. Just an amazing endeavor to pull this off. And I do know some of you are here from Southern California, so hopefully you can rise to the same level. Let me start us back, as Wade did, to the May meeting. So we heard a lot from the North Coast on what their regional strategy is, how they're trying to pull together a huge diversity of interest and opportunities in the North Coast, all the way from Sonoma County to the Oregon border. We then introduced the idea that we really needed to put together a regional framework that recognizes the diversity of interest, the diversity of risks that are out there, the diversity of organizations. So you're going to hear a little bit more about that today. And we also started talking, I think for the first time, really seriously about trying to move towards landscape scale grants. We heard from all of you that having individual competitive grants for individual projects is really difficult to sustain your efforts without larger scale grants for longer periods. That's not going to be easy to do given our various budget systems and allocation systems we're in, but we're committed to try to pilot that approach, and you'll hear about that today. We then moved on to the July meeting, and typically the way we're organized is that we certainly have regional meetings to hear from regional leaders about their risks, their priorities. When we come to Sacramento, it's all about trying to align and integrate the work of the various agencies. So, for instance, we heard in July about our interagency tracking system, which is proving to be a tremendous challenge to try to align how state, federal, local agencies track progress on acres treated. We're still working on that. We'll give you an update on that in November. We heard from a wide variety of agencies that are involved in planning and permitting projects to make sure they're moving forward on their efforts towards what they call permit synchronization. Happy to report that's going well. And then we're here today, again, for our second regional meeting. We're really going to take our regional framework to the next level and dive into it a little bit more detail to talk about some resource kits that our interagency team have put together, to hear from our recreational panel about how recreation can be better integrated into regional planning, and so on. We will then come back in November to Sacramento and give you an update on how those interagency processes are going. How are we taking all this work in the regions and building it into a million-acre strategy? How are we doing on trying to better assess progress we're making on acres treated throughout the state? How are we going to monitor and assess our progress over time? Very challenging to do that when you've got thousands of projects underway. And then, as I'll come back to, a real focus on state and federal funding. We've got the benefit of very large new investments on both the state and federal side, so we're going to try at the November meeting to give you a roadmap for how those investments are going to be made, to the extent to which we know by then what the various state and agency plans are for investing that money. And then we'll come back, as Wade said, to Southern California in January to see if we can put these same style kits together in ways that work there. And then finally, we're just playing with this as an idea, but thinking about whether or not the March meeting can be the first ever look back, comprehensive look back, state, federal, local, tribal. What did we accomplish last year? What kind of scorecard can we put together that not only demonstrates the success of the task force in aligning what state and federal agencies are doing, but to demonstrate how effective you've been in the region in getting projects implemented and on the ground. So I hope that gives you at least a little bit of a framework for where we're headed. I'm going to flip through just a few more slides to give you a couple more specific updates. Again, all of these are on our website. We do put together also a monthly that's also a big job to hear from 20 or 30 different agencies, what they're accomplishing. CAL FIRE, as most of you know, has launched their CalMapper program to give you instant access to all the great work they're doing. ARB has released a smoke spotter trying to get ahead of prescribed fire and some of the smoke impacts. Tomorrow, CNRA is launching a big 30 by 30 event, which is definitely going to complement what we're doing. We're tracking that closely as well. They've also brought Google on board to help our interagency team, as you'll hear later today, to try to get some of our metrics and our assessment work right directly in your hands in ways that are user-friendly. Our new Energy Safety Division at CNRA has published some certification guidelines. OPR has published new guidelines. It is launching a new climate change assessment. And the Forest Service has a number of national blueprints that are out. Again, we're trying to track all that, put it in your hands, make it meaningful, and try to orient our programs in ways that meet these multiple objectives. But of course, a lot of it comes down to funding. We've had the benefit of a wide variety of investments just over the last several months through the CCI program. ARB has put out a report, again, you can find on our website, tracking $1 billion worth of investments they've made, many of them that are forest related. OES has allocated $25 million recently for vulnerable communities. We've got workforce grants, a $21 million grant just for workforce. We've got business grants from CAL FIRE. We've got the Forest Service nationally providing money for community defense. Again, we're going to try to capture all this in the next meeting or two so you have a better understanding of how money is flowing from these different agencies. As most of you know, those investments are historic. As Wade said, we have an additional $1.3 billion invested by the governor and the legislature in forest health, community protection, reforestation, prescribed fire. Our challenge, of course, is to try to make sure that money gets out to you in a way that's effective and coordinated. And on the federal side, also historic expenditures between the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure bill. We're going to work as hard as we can to try to align that state and federal money in ways that help you and that are streamlined. Here's a couple of examples that are just out there. Here's CAL FIRE's recently put together a spreadsheet that shows where their investments are. ARB has done the same. What we're going to try to do with the task force is pull all this together into a comprehensive picture of what are we investing in and where throughout the state. So again, you can, if you want to get updated, you can go on our website. Hopefully that'll be a link to all the information you need from the various agencies that are involved in the task force. And certainly look forward to working with you as we work through these issues and hear from you what key issues you want to hear about from us as we move ahead. So that's sort of the briefest look back. I do want to turn to today's agenda. Before I do that, certainly happy to answer any questions you folks have.
No, it sounds really good, Patrick. Remind us, for those who are watching on the internet or those here who haven't visited the website, is it just a matter of Googling the task force?
Sure, if you just Google Wildfire Task Force, it'll come right up. It's wildfiretaskforce.org, and hopefully it's lots of information there will be easily accessible. If you have any issues with that, certainly can contact us.
And if you want to get monthly updates, not too much spam into your email, you can sign up for the listserv, and that's a good way to stay up to speed on both funding opportunities but also progress reports.
All right. So now let me shift to today. At our last meeting in Sacramento, we tried to put together just a really simple graphic that showed how we're trying to move forward on a regional framework that works at the state level and works at the regional level. And so what we tried to do is actually structure most of today's agenda around that regional framework. So again, back to the website, we have developed a draft regional profile. We're going to try to develop 4 of these for each of the 4 major regions of the state. You can go online, you can find that. It'll give you and others, particularly public members who are less sophisticated than you are, hey, what are the key issues and opportunities in the Sierra? What are the key issues in Southern California? What are the key barriers that we're facing in the North Coast? All of that will be there as part of a regional profile that you can rely on to have a single document. It's just draft, so we definitely want to hear from you as to whether or not we're catching the key issues that you've identified. It's based in part on polling of hundreds of folks in the Sierra Nevada on what they think the key issues and opportunities are in each region. Big emphasis this morning is going to be on what we're calling regional resource kits. We had a situation up until about 6 months or a year ago where you had a state process to define the condition of our forest and what success is. You had a federal process. You had a series of academics that are also trying to figure out how do we define forest resilience beyond acres treated? How do we capture what we're doing? We've pulled all of those folks together into an interagency team that's jointly working on a series of pillars of forest resilience to define what a healthy forest is, what a resilient community is in your area. What metrics do we use to define that? And then based on those metrics, how are we looking? What does the Sierra look like in our neighborhood? Where do we have healthy forest? Where do we not? So that gives us a better opportunities to plan and prioritize. How do we build on some of the private decision support systems with the public options that allows you at the local effort to plan and prioritize, to look at trade-offs, to figure out how do I get timber harvest done and recreation and water and biodiversity. We hope to lay all that out in a way that's user-friendly to help accelerate efforts on the ground to plan and prioritize projects. And of course, we're also, as I said before, working on an inventory of recently incomplete and planned projects. This is going to serve two purposes. One is it's going to tell us statewide how we're doing. How many acres are we treating and where? So that we can build on that to a 1,000,000-acre strategy and beyond. But even more important, to give you in the field, if you're in Placer County, if you're in El Dorado County, where is the Forest Service getting work done? Where's state parks getting work done? Where's PG&E working? Where are the private companies? By having that information, we're hoping that we can facilitate more integrated regional planning. But it really takes pulling all that data together in one place and making it accessible to you. So that's really going to be the flavor of the morning, is resource kits and how they're intended to help you at the regional level better plan and prioritize projects. Next question is, okay, what is happening in the Central Sierra? So we're going to come back after lunch and we're going to hear from 3 of our leaders at the Forest Service and their partners about how they're using some of these metrics, how they're using these tools to plan and prioritize projects in their areas to try to improve the health of their forests, the safety of the communities throughout the Sierra. How are they building landscape plans instead of individual projects? How are they ramping up? How are they developing pipelines of projects that can be funded through block grants? That'll be a big theme. And then, of course, the question is, how do we pay for all this? So the third session is going to be, again, we talked about huge investments being made by the state and by the feds. How do we align those investments in ways that help you on the ground get things done quicker, faster, and at a bigger scale? And then finally, as you heard from Stacy, how do we integrate recreation into all of this? Recreation is the backbone of the economy in the Sierra Nevada. We need to make sure that that's not viewed as a siloed effort, that's not viewed in the context of forest and watershed plans. So that's the plan for the day. We've structured it so that in each session we roughly have half the time for presentation and half the time for conversation about how this is going to work and to hear from our panelists on what's working, as Wade said, what's not working so well. So with that, let me leave you with 2 themes. And you've already heard a couple of these from our panelists that I want you to think about both today and over the next several months. One is, as you've all heard, my favorite word, alignment. How do we align federal, state, local, private, and tribal resources to help you get your work done? That's the #1 role of the task force, is to take advantage of the leadership you see here to try to put tools in your hands so that you can scale up. So be thinking about what more we can do to align funding, aligning metrics, aligning tools, aligning reforestation pipelines and seed banks. Anything you can think of that would help, aligning training to help you get the job done. So that's theme #1. Theme #2 is, how do you develop a statewide program that also reflects the tremendous diversity in California, that recognizes that in some areas of the Sierra, timber harvest is absolutely key to their economy. In other places, water is super important. In third areas, it's recreation. How do we allow and encourage regional diversity, but also scale it up so that we can report to the legislature, we can report to Congress on what we're accomplishing? What's that balance between local priorities, and statewide mandates. How do we use this opportunity not just to make communities safer and our forest healthier, but to meet our biodiversity goals, our 30 by 30 goals, our carbon storage goals, et cetera. It's a big challenge we have ahead of us, and we know alignment's the key to that. So we look forward to hearing from you today and in the future about how we can do a better job of helping you get there. So thank you, and I hope we have a good, healthy exchange today. Thank you, Wade.
Thanks.